My name is Daniel, I'm 28 years old, and 3 weeks ago I found out my entire life was built on a lie. The morning started like any other Thursday. I was sitting in my cramped studio apartment, staring at my laptop screen, trying to make rent money from freelance graphic design work that barely covered groceries. My phone buzzed. A text from my older brother, Marcus. Family meeting tonight. 7 p.m. Don't be late. No explanation. No context. Just a command, which was typical for Marcus. He'd always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. Harvard MBA, corner office at a Fortune 500 company, engaged to a woman whose family owned half of Connecticut. Meanwhile, I was the family disappointment, the art school dropout who chose passion over practicality. I showed up at my parents' house in the suburbs at 6:55 p.m. The driveway was already full. Marcus's Tesla, my sister Vanessa's Range Rover, even Uncle Robert's vintage Cadillac. Something big was happening. Inside, everyone was gathered in the living room. Mom sat on the couch, tissue in hand, eyes red. Dad stood by the fireplace, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Marcus was pacing. Vanessa wouldn't make eye contact. "Daniel, sit down," Dad said. The tone in his voice made my stomach drop. This wasn't about missed Thanksgiving dinners or my lack of a real career. This was something else entirely. "There's something we need to tell you," Mom whispered. "Something we should have told you a long time ago." I sat in the old armchair I'd claimed as mine since childhood, the one nobody else wanted because the springs were shot. "What's going on?" Marcus stopped pacing. "Maybe I should just..." "No." Dad's voice was firm. "I'll tell him." He looked at me, and I saw something I'd never seen before in my father's eyes. Shame. "Daniel, when you were born there were complications. Your biological mother, she had a difficult delivery, and afterward she made a decision." The room tilted. "My biological mother? Karen and I," Dad gestured to Mom. "We couldn't have children of our own. We've been trying for years. We were on an adoption waiting list when we got the call about you. A private arrangement. We brought you home when you were 3 days old." The words hung in the air like smoke. I tried to process them, but they didn't make sense. "You're saying I'm adopted?" "Yes," Mom said, her voice breaking. 28 years. 28 years of family dinners, holidays, arguments, and awkward silences, and nobody thought to mention this tiny detail. "Who knows about this?" I asked slowly. The silence was deafening. "Everyone," Vanessa finally said. "Marcus and I have always known. Uncle Robert, Aunt Claire, the cousins, everyone." I looked around the room at faces I'd known my entire life. Every single person had kept this secret from me. "Why tell me now?" Marcus cleared his throat. "Because your biological mother reached out. She wants to meet you." My hand started shaking. After 28 years, she just decides to show up? "It's complicated," Dad said. "She's sick, Daniel. Stage 4 cancer. The doctors gave her 6 months, maybe less. She wants to see you before." He couldn't finish the sentence. I stood up so fast the chair nearly tipped over. "Let me get this straight. My entire family has been lying to me for 28 years. And now some dying stranger wants to meet me, and you all expect me to just go along with it." "Daniel, please." Mom reached for me, but I stepped back. "Does she have other kids?" I don't know why I asked. Maybe I wanted to know if I'd been replaceable. "Yes," Marcus said quietly. 2 daughters. They're older than you. So she kept them. She raised them. But not me. I need to leave." I grabbed my jacket. "Daniel, wait." Dad moved toward me. "There's more you need to know. About why she gave you up. About who she is." I stopped at the door. "Who is she?" The look that passed between my parents told me whatever they were about to say would change everything. "Her name is Catherine Morrison," Dad said. "And she's one of the wealthiest women in the state." I walked out without another word. But I could feel their eyes on my back, heavy with secrets I was only beginning to uncover. I drove for 2 hours with no destination in mind. Just drove, hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white, trying to outrun the truth that was chasing me. Catherine Morrison. Even I knew that name, and I didn't follow high society gossip. She owned Morrison Industries, a pharmaceutical empire worth billions. Her face had been on magazine covers, business journals, charity galas. And apparently she was my mother. The woman who gave me away was rich enough to buy a small country. I finally pulled into a 24-hour diner off the highway. The kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that tasted like regret. My phone had been buzzing nonstop. 17 missed calls from Mom, Karen, whatever I was supposed to call her now. 12 texts from Marcus. Nothing from Vanessa, which somehow hurt more than the silence from Dad. I ordered coffee I wouldn't drink and stared at my reflection in the window. Did I look like her? Catherine Morrison. I pulled up her photo on my phone. Professional headshot, silver hair styled perfectly, sharp cheekbones, ice blue eyes that seemed to look right through the camera. I saw nothing of myself in her face. Rough night. The waitress, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a name tag that read Donna, refilled my untouched cup. You could say that. Want to talk about it? I've heard everything in 23 years working here. Nothing shocks me anymore. I almost laughed. Just found out I'm adopted. And that my birth mother is Catherine Morrison. Donna's eyes widened. The Catherine Morrison? Apparently. She let out a low whistle and slid into the booth across from me, which should have felt intrusive but somehow didn't. That's a hell of a Thursday. She's dying. Cancer. Wants to meet me after 28 years of pretending I don't exist. Donna was quiet for a moment, studying me. What do you want to do? That was the question, wasn't it? What did I want? Not what my family wanted, not what Catherine Morrison wanted. What did Daniel want? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to meet her just to ask why. Why give me away when she clearly had the money to keep me? Why reach out now when she's dying instead of 10 years ago when it might have mattered? And the other part? The other part wants to forget this ever happened. Go back to my life, pretend I never found out. Donna nodded slowly. Except you can't unknow something, can you? That cat's out of the bag. My phone buzzed again. This time it was an unknown number. I stared at it for 3 rings before answering. Hello. Daniel. A woman's voice, refined, cultured, and unmistakably weak. This is Catherine Morrison. Your brother gave me your number. I hope that's all right. I looked at Donna, who raised her eyebrows and quietly slid out of the booth, giving me privacy I didn't want. What do you want? My voice came out harsher than intended. A soft breath on the other end. I want to meet you. To explain. I know you must have questions. 28 years worth. Yes. A pause. I don't expect forgiveness, Daniel. I don't even expect you to like me. But I'm asking for one afternoon. One conversation before I run out of time. There was something in her voice, something beyond the carefully controlled tone. Fear maybe. Or regret. Why now? I asked. Why not 5 years ago? 10 years ago? Why wait until you're dying? Because I'm a coward. The admission was so raw, so unexpected that I fell silent. I've been a coward your entire life, and I'm trying very hard not to die as one. But if you tell me no, I'll respect that. I'll disappear. And you'll never hear from me again. I thought about my parents, Karen and Michael, who raised me, who struggled to pay for my failed art school dreams, who loved me even when I disappointed them. Then I thought about this woman, this stranger who shared my DNA, who had every resource in the world but chose to give me away. One meeting, I said finally. One conversation. And then I decide if I ever want to see you again. That's more than I deserve. Her voice cracked slightly. Thank you, Daniel. She gave me an address, a private estate outside the city, and we agreed on Saturday afternoon. 2 days from now. 2 days to prepare for a conversation that might destroy the fragile understanding I had of my own life. When I hung up, Donna was back with a fresh pot of coffee. You're meeting her? Yeah. Good. She topped off my cup. You need to hear her side. Doesn't mean you have to accept it, but you need to hear it. Trust me on this one. I paid for coffee I never touched and drove home as the sun started rising. My apartment felt different now, like someone had moved all the furniture 2 inches to the left. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt right. On my kitchen counter was a manila envelope that hadn't been there when I left. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a birth certificate. My original birth certificate. Mother, Catherine Elizabeth Morrison. Father unknown. And beneath it, A handwritten note in elegant script. I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough to be your mother. I hope you can forgive me for being human. I stood there for a long time, holding a piece of paper that proved I was someone I'd never known I was. Saturday couldn't come fast enough. Or maybe it was coming too soon. I honestly couldn't tell anymore. Friday passed in a blur of unanswered phone calls and obsessive internet searches. I fell down a rabbit hole of Catherine Morrison's life, scrolling through decades of photographs, articles, and interviews. There she was at charity galas, cutting ribbons at hospital wings, accepting awards for philanthropy. Always perfectly composed, always alone. No husband in the photos. No mention of children in any article. It was like she'd erased that part of her life completely. Around midnight, Marcus showed up at my door with Chinese takeout and 2 beers. You look like hell, he said, pushing past me into the apartment. Thanks. That's exactly what I needed to hear. He set the food on my coffee table and handed me a beer. Have you eaten anything since yesterday? I hadn't. We ate in silence for a while, the only sound the scrape of chopsticks against cardboard containers. Why didn't you tell me? I finally asked. We're brothers. Or at least I thought we were. Marcus set down his food. Mom and Dad made us promise when we were kids. They said it was your story to know when you were ready. But the years kept passing, and it never felt like the right time. So you just never planned to tell me? Honestly, I thought they would. On your 18th birthday or your 21st or when you graduated. But they kept putting it off. And then it became this enormous secret that felt impossible to reveal. He took a long drink. I should have told you anyway. I'm sorry. I wanted to stay angry but I was too exhausted. What's she like? Catherine. I've never met her. None of us have. The adoption was completely closed. Mom and Dad don't even know why she gave you up. That surprised me. They never asked? The lawyer said she wanted complete anonymity. No contact, no information exchange, nothing. Mom said it was actually harder that way, not knowing your medical history or background. But they wanted you so badly they agreed to everything. I thought about that, about Karen and Michael signing papers, bringing home a 3-day-old baby with no past, only future. They really wanted me. Marcus looked at me like I'd grown a second head. Daniel, you were everything to them. Do you know how many fertility treatments they tried? How much money they spent? When they got the call about you, Mom said it felt like a miracle. Something in my chest loosened. I always thought I was a disappointment. The dropout who couldn't get his life together. You're not a disappointment. You're just different from what they expected. But they love you, man. We all do. After Marcus left, I tried to sleep but couldn't. Questions spun through my mind like a carousel I couldn't stop. At 3 a.m. I did something impulsive. I called the number Catherine had used. She answered on the second ring. Daniel, why did you give me away? The words tumbled out. I've read about you. You had money, resources, everything. So why? Silence stretched between us. Then, can we talk about this tomorrow? In person. I need to know something now, or I'm not coming. Another pause. All right. What do you want to know? Did you love my father? The question seemed to catch her off guard. Yes. Very much. Where is he? Dead. He died 2 months before you were born. The answer hit me like a physical blow. How? Car accident. Drunk driver. Her voice was steady but hollow, like she'd told this story so many times it had lost its power to hurt. We weren't married. My family didn't approve. When he died, I was 5 months pregnant and completely alone. But you had money. You could have raised me yourself. Money doesn't fix everything, Daniel. I was 22 years old, grieving and terrified. My family gave me an ultimatum. Give you up or they'd cut me off completely. No inheritance, no company, nothing. I told myself I was making a practical choice. But you regret it. Every single day for 28 years. Her voice finally cracked. I thought I was doing what was best for you. I thought you'd have a better life with 2 parents who really wanted you, who could give you stability I couldn't provide. I was wrong about a lot of things, but I wasn't wrong about that. The Donovans love you. I made sure of that. You checked up on me? Once a year I'd get a report. Nothing invasive, just confirmation you were healthy and safe. It was the only thing that kept me sane. I didn't know what to say to that. I'll see you tomorrow, I finally managed. Thank you, Daniel. Sleep well. But I didn't sleep at all. Saturday morning arrived with gray skies that matched my mood. I changed clothes 4 times before settling on jeans and a button-down shirt, then immediately second-guessed the choice. What do you wear to meet the mother who gave you away? Rachel, my best friend since college, showed up at 10 a.m. with coffee and moral support. You don't have to do this, she said, perched on my couch. You can turn around right now and never look back. I know. But you're going anyway. I have to know, Rachel. I have to understand why my whole life has been built on a lie. She studied me with those sharp brown eyes that had seen me through breakups, failures, and too many 2M existential crises to count. Just promise me something. Don't let her guilt trip you into a relationship you don't want. Dying doesn't automatically make someone a good person. I promise. The Morrison estate was an hour outside the city, hidden behind iron gates and tall hedges that screamed old money. I gave my name to the intercom, and the gates swung open silently. The driveway wound through manicured gardens that probably cost more to maintain than I'd earn in 5 years. The house itself was massive, all stone and glass, modern architecture blended with classical elements. A woman in a gray suit met me at the door. Mr. Donovan, I'm Helen, Ms. Morrison's assistant. She's expecting you in the conservatory. Please follow me. We walked through rooms filled with art I recognized from textbooks, past windows overlooking gardens that belonged in magazines. Everything was perfect, pristine, expensive, and utterly empty of life. The conservatory was all glass and greenery, plants cascading from every surface. And there, in a wheelchair by the windows, sat Catherine Morrison. She looked smaller than her photographs, diminished by illness. The silver hair was thinner now, her face gaunt, but those ice blue eyes were exactly as I'd seen online. Sharp, intelligent, afraid. Daniel. She didn't try to stand. Thank you for coming. Helen disappeared silently, leaving us alone. I stood there, awkward and uncertain, staring at the woman who was supposed to be my mother but felt like a stranger. Please sit. She gestured to a chair across from her. I don't bite, I promise. The cancers made me weak, not vicious. I sat. Up close, I could see the resemblance I'd missed in photographs. The shape of my nose, the set of my jaw, the way my left eyebrow arched slightly higher than my right. You look like him, she said softly. Your father. Thomas. You have his eyes. Tell me about him. She smiled, and for a moment the illness fell away. He was brilliant. Reckless. He worked at Morrison Industries as a researcher developing new drug therapies. We met at a company function. I was fresh out of business school, trying to prove I deserved my position, that I wasn't just daddy's little girl playing at business. And he didn't care about your money? He actively hated it. Said it made people shallow and cruel. He was right, mostly. She paused, her hands trembling slightly in her lap. We kept the relationship secret for 6 months. My father would have fired him immediately if he'd known. Why? Because Thomas came from nothing. Wrong background, wrong social class, wrong everything by my family's standards. When I got pregnant, I was happy. Terrified but happy. Thomas proposed immediately. We were going to run away, start over somewhere my family name didn't matter. Her voice caught. I waited. The night before we planned to leave, he went to his apartment to pack. A drunk driver ran a red light. Thomas died instantly. She wiped at her eyes with a shaking hand. I was 5 months pregnant and completely shattered. My father saw an opportunity. He said I could keep my inheritance, my position in the company, everything if I gave you up. He said raising a baby alone would destroy my career, that I was too young and broken to be a mother. So you chose money over me. I chose survival. Or at least that's what I told myself. She met my eyes. I was 22, Daniel. I just lost the only person who ever really loved me. I was drowning in grief and listening to people who said they knew what was best. So I signed the papers and they took you away 3 days after you were born, and I didn't fight it because I was a coward. The bitterness in her voice was almost palpable. What happened after? I asked. I threw myself into work. Built Morrison Industries into what it is today. Never married. Never had more children. My father said I'd made the right choice, that I could focus on my career now. He died 5 years later and I inherited everything. All this wealth, all this power. And it meant absolutely nothing because I'd given away the only thing that mattered. She looked around the conservatory. I built all of this on the foundation of losing you. The silence stretched between us, heavy with 28 years of absence. I watched Catherine's hands tremble in her lap, noticed how the sunlight streaming through the glass seemed to make her almost transparent. You said you got yearly reports, I said finally. What did they tell you? A ghost of a smile crossed her face. Everything and nothing. That you were healthy, doing well in school, that the Donovans loved you. When you were 7, you won a school art competition. When you were 12, you broke your arm falling off a skateboard. When you were 16, you got your first girlfriend, Sarah-chan, and were heartbroken when she moved to California. I stared at her. You knew about Sarah? I knew about all of it. Your failed attempt to join the basketball team in 9th grade. Your acceptance to art school. The night you called your mother crying because you didn't think you belonged there. She looked down. I knew everything except what your voice sounded like, or what you smelled like as a baby, or what it felt like to hold you. Something twisted in my chest. That was your choice. Yes, it was. And I've lived with that choice every day. She reached for a glass of water on the table beside her, her hand shaking so badly I almost stood to help. She waved me off. I can manage. After she drank, she continued. When I was diagnosed 6 months ago, my first thought wasn't about my legacy or my company or my wealth. It was that I was going to die without you ever knowing I existed. Without you knowing that giving you away was the worst mistake of my life. So this is about easing your conscience before you die. The words came out harder than I intended, but Catherine didn't flinch. Partially, yes. I won't lie to you, Daniel. I want forgiveness I don't deserve. But I also want you to know the truth. About your father, about me, about why things happen the way they did. You deserve that much. What about your other children? Marcus said you had 2 daughters. Her face went carefully blank. I don't have other children. He said. Your brother was mistaken. Or perhaps someone lied to him. I never had other children, Daniel. After you I couldn't. Physically, yes, but emotionally. She shook her head. How could I bring another child into this world after what I'd done to you? So that was another lie in a pile of lies. I made a mental note to call Marcus later. There's something else you should know, Catherine said. Your father, Thomas, he left something for you. He didn't know you'd be born, didn't know he was going to die, but he left a letter. For his future children, he said. I've kept it all these years. She reached into a bag beside her wheelchair and pulled out an envelope, yellowed with age. I've never opened it. It's addressed to his son or daughter. It belongs to you. I took the envelope with numb fingers. My father's handwriting on the outside, neat and careful. To my child whenever you arrive. I can't read this now, I said. I understand. Take it with you. Read it when you're ready. I slipped the envelope into my jacket pocket, feeling its weight like a stone. Why didn't you just send this to me? Why wait until now? Because I'm selfish, Catherine said simply. I wanted to see you. To meet the man you became despite me, not because of me. The Donovans did a beautiful job raising you, Daniel. The reports never captured how kind your eyes are. Or how you sit with your shoulders hunched like you're trying to take up less space in the world. You got that from Thomas. He always felt like he didn't quite belong. I need some air. I stood abruptly. Of course. The gardens are yours to explore. Take all the time you need. I walked out into the manicured grounds, past flower beds that probably had names I couldn't pronounce, past fountains and sculptures and everything money could buy. My hand kept going to the envelope in my pocket. My father's words waiting for me across 28 years and death. I found a bench hidden behind a hedge and sat down, pulled out my phone, texted Rachel. I don't know if I can do this. Her response came immediately. Yes, you can. You're the strongest person I know. But you don't have to do it alone. Call me if you need me. I almost called her right then. Instead, I pulled out the envelope. The paper was thin, delicate. I opened it carefully and unfolded a single page covered in that same neat handwriting. To my child. I'm writing this on a Tuesday night in my cramped apartment, eating takeout and thinking about the future. Your mother and I found out last week that she's pregnant with you. We're terrified and thrilled and making plans to run away together, to build a life where you can be whoever you want to be. I don't know if you'll be a son or daughter. I don't know what you'll look like or what you'll love or who you'll become. But I know this. You are already loved beyond measure. Your mother is the bravest, brightest person I've ever met. She comes from a world that tries to make her small, but she refuses to shrink. I hope you inherit that from her. From me, I hope you get my curiosity, my love of learning, my terrible jokes that make your mother groan. I hope you get my ability to find wonder in small things. But most of all, I hope you know that you are enough. Exactly as you are. You don't have to earn love or prove your worth. You are valuable simply because you exist. I can't wait to meet you. Love, your father, Thomas. I read it 3 times before the tears came. I sat on that bench for 20 minutes, crying over words written by a man I'd never meet. A man who died excited to be my father, who never got the chance to hold me or tell me terrible jokes or teach me that I was enough exactly as I was. When I finally walked back to the conservatory, Catherine took one look at my face and knew I'd read the letter. "He would have been a wonderful father," she said quietly. "Yeah." My voice was rough. "He would have. I robbed you of that. I robbed both of us." I sat back down, the letter still clutched in my hand. "Can I ask you something? And I need you to be completely honest. Anything. Do you have regrets because you actually wanted to be my mother? Or because dying makes everything feel unfinished?" Catherine was quiet for a long moment. "That's a fair question." She looked out at the gardens. "At first, after I gave you up, I told myself I'd done the right thing. I worked 18-hour days, built the company, proved I was more than just my father's daughter. I didn't let myself think about you because thinking about you meant admitting I'd made a mistake. When did that change? Your 10th birthday. I got the annual report and there was a photo included by mistake. You were at your birthday party, covered in chocolate cake, laughing at something. You looked so happy, so loved. And I realized I'd missed 10 years of that. 10 years of birthdays and lost teeth and scraped knees and bedtime stories. I'd missed everything." She turned back to me. "I started going to therapy. Finally dealt with Thomas's death, with my father's manipulation, with my own choices. My therapist asked me once what I'd say to you if I could. I told her I'd say I was sorry. She asked if sorry was enough. I said no, but it was all I had." "It's still all you have," I said. "I know. But I'm offering it anyway, inadequate as it is." Catherine reached for something beside her chair and pulled out a folder. "I also want to offer you something else. Not as payment or bribery, but as what should have been yours all along." She handed me the folder. Inside were legal documents, dense with words I didn't fully understand. But I caught enough: trust fund, inheritance, my name on every page. This is Thomas's share of a patent he developed while working at Morrison Industries. When he died, it reverted to me as his next of kin. The patent has generated significant royalties over the years. This money is yours. It always should have been. I looked at the numbers. My hand started shaking. This is millions of dollars. 3.7 million to be exact. It's been sitting in a trust waiting for you. I added to it over the years. Call it guilt money if you want. Call it blood money. But it's yours, regardless of whether you ever speak to me again after today. I closed the folder. I need to think about this. Of course. Take all the time you need. My lawyer's information is in there. When you're ready, contact him. Or don't. The choice is entirely yours. We sat in silence. Outside, a bird landed on the fountain, splashing in the water. "Can I ask you something now?" Catherine said. "Okay. Are you happy? In your life with who you've become?" I thought about my cramped apartment, my freelance work that barely paid bills, my failed art school dreams. I thought about Rachel's friendship, about the Donovans who raised me, about the design work I did love even when it frustrated me. "I'm getting there," I said honestly. "I'm not where I thought I'd be, but I'm figuring it out. Thomas would be proud of that. He always said the journey mattered more than the destination." She smiled sadly. "I wish I'd learned that lesson. It's not too late. Isn't it?" She gestured at herself, at the wheelchair, at the 4-port visible beneath her sleeve. "I have maybe 4 months, Daniel. 5 if I'm lucky. That's not enough time to undo 28 years. No, I agreed. But it's enough time to try. Something shifted in her expression. Hope maybe, or the faint echo of it. Are you saying you'd be willing to see me again? I'm saying I don't know yet. But I'm not saying no. She nodded slowly. That's more than I deserve. Helen appeared in the doorway, silent as a ghost. Ms. Morrison, you have your medication in 15 minutes. Thank you, Helen. Catherine looked at me. I'm afraid I tire easily these days. But before you go, would you tell me one thing about yourself? Anything. Something the reports never captured. I thought for a moment. I'm terrified of thunderstorms. Have been since I was 6. Karen, my mom, she'd make blanket forts with me, and we'd wait them out together with hot chocolate and flashlights. Catherine's eyes glistened. That's beautiful. She sounds like a wonderful mother. She is. Good. I'm glad you had her when you couldn't have me. I left the Morrison estate with more questions than answers, $3.7 million in theoretical money I couldn't process, and my father's letter burning a hole in my pocket. The drive home was a blur of gray highway and grayer thoughts. Rachel was waiting at my apartment with Thai food and wine. Talk, she demanded the moment I walked in. I told her everything. About Catherine's regrets, about Thomas's letter, about the money. When I finished, Rachel sat back on my couch and let out a long breath. That's a lot. Understatement of the century. Are you going to take the money? I've been asking myself the same question for the past hour. I don't know. It feels like accepting it means forgiving her, and I'm not sure I'm ready for that. The money and forgiveness are two separate things, Daniel. Your father created something valuable. That money is yours by right, not by her generosity. Rachel poured us both wine. Besides, when's the last time you weren't worried about rent? She had a point. I've been living paycheck to paycheck for years, turning down creative projects because I had to take whatever paid the bills. $3.7 million would change everything. It feels wrong, I said. Why? Because you've been raised to believe you don't deserve good things. Rachel's voice was gentle but firm. Catherine made her choices. This money doesn't erase what she did, but it also doesn't have to be tainted by it. It's your father's legacy. Let it be that. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept reading Thomas's letter over and over, studying his handwriting, trying to find some piece of him in the curves of his letters. Around 2 a.m. I did something impulsive. I called Catherine's number. Helen answered. Mr. Donovan, is everything all right? I need to ask Catherine something. I know it's late, but... One moment. There was a shuffle, then Catherine's voice, weak but alert. Daniel. I'm sorry for calling so late. I need to know something about my father. Something the letter didn't say. Ask me anything. What did he love? Like what made him happy? I heard her smile through the phone. Music. He had terrible taste, loved these obscure indie bands nobody had heard of. He'd play guitar badly and sing worse. He loved hiking, said it cleared his head. And he loved teaching. He'd spend hours explaining his research to me, making complex science sound like poetry. Did he want kids? More than anything. He grew up in foster care, bounced between families who didn't want him. When we found out about you, he cried. Said he was going to be the father he never had. My throat tightened. Thank you for telling me. Daniel, there are boxes of his things in my attic. Photos, journals, his guitar. They're yours if you want them. I'd like that. Come back whenever you're ready. I'll have Helen prepare them. We hung up, and I sat in the darkness of my apartment, thinking about a man who grew up unwanted and died before he could meet the child he'd wanted so desperately. The next morning, Marcus showed up unannounced again. We need to talk about Catherine, he said, pushing past me. Good morning to you too. I talked to Mom and Dad. They're freaking out that you're going to choose Catherine over them now that you know about the money. I stared at him. They know about the money? Catherine's lawyer contacted them yesterday. Some legal formality about releasing the trust. Mom's been crying for 12 hours straight. Anger flared in my chest. So they're worried I'll abandon them because of money? That's rich coming from people who lied to me for 28 years. Daniel, come on. They're scared. You have to understand their perspective. Do I? I was surprised by the heat in my voice. Marcus, they had 3 decades to tell me the truth. They chose not to. Now they're upset that the truth came out in a way they couldn't control. They love you. I know they do. But love and honesty aren't mutually exclusive. They should have trusted me with my own story. Marcus ran his hand through his hair, frustrated. So what, you're just going to cut them out? Replace them with Catherine? That's not what this is about. I took a breath, trying to calm down. I'm not replacing anyone. I'm trying to figure out who I am now that everything I thought I knew has been turned upside down. Catherine is dying, Marcus. I have maybe a few months to get answers about where I came from. That doesn't erase Mom and Dad. Then why haven't you called them back? Because I didn't know what to say. Because I was angry and hurt and confused. Because every time I thought about calling, I remembered 28 years of family dinners where everyone knew a secret I didn't. I need time, I said finally. They don't have infinite time, Daniel. None of us do. After Marcus left, I sat with that thought. He was right, even if I didn't want to admit it. Catherine wasn't the only one running out of time. Karen and Michael were in their 60s now. Healthy but getting older. If I waited too long to reconcile, I might lose that chance too. I picked up my phone and pulled up Mom's number. My finger hovered over the call button. Then I put the phone down and grabbed my keys instead. Some conversations needed to happen face to face. The house I grew up in looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I'd just gotten used to seeing it through angry eyes. Dad's truck was in the driveway, Mom's sedan parked beside it. Sunday afternoon they'd be inside reading the paper, doing crosswords, living their quiet suburban life. I sat in my car for 10 minutes before finding the courage to walk to the door. Mom answered before I could knock. Her eyes were red, her face pale. Daniel. Hi, Mom. We stood there awkwardly until Dad appeared behind her. Karen let the boy in. The kitchen table was already set with coffee and the cookies Mom always made when she was stressed. Chocolate chip, my favorite, which somehow made everything worse. I'm glad you came, Dad said, settling into his usual chair. I sat across from them, and the silence was suffocating. Finally, Mom spoke. We should have told you sooner. Years ago. I know that now. Why didn't you? She twisted her hands together. At first, we were waiting for you to be old enough to understand. Then you were old enough, but it never felt like the right time. You were happy, thriving. We were afraid of disrupting that. So you just decided to never tell me? No, Dad said firmly. We always planned to tell you. We just kept finding reasons to wait. Your high school graduation felt too important. College felt too stressful. Then you dropped out and were struggling, and we didn't want to add to your burden. My burden. The words came out sharper than intended. You don't think finding out at 28 that my entire life is a lie is a burden? Mom flinched. You're right. We were cowards. I met her, I said. Catherine. Yesterday. They exchanged a look I couldn't read. How was that? Dad asked carefully. Complicated. She told me about my father. About why she gave me up. About the money. The money doesn't matter, Daniel, Mom said quickly. We never wanted you for money. We wanted you because we couldn't have children of our own. And when the agency called about you, it felt like a miracle. I know that. But you should have told me the truth. You should have trusted me. Dad nodded slowly. You're absolutely right. We failed you in that regard. But I need you to understand something, son. From the moment we brought you home, you were ours. Not Catherine Morrison's son that we were borrowing. Ours. We never thought of you as adopted. You were just Daniel, our boy. That's the problem though, isn't it? I said quietly. You got to decide I was just Daniel. I didn't get to decide anything. I didn't get to know where I came from or who my birth parents were. You took that choice away from me. Mom was crying now. I know. I'm so sorry. I looked at the woman who'd raised me, who'd made blanket forts during thunderstorms and sat through terrible school plays and taught me to ride a bike. The woman who wasn't my biological mother, but had been my mom in every way that mattered. I'm not saying I'm cutting you out of my life, I said. But I need you to understand that I'm angry. I'm hurt. And I need time to process all of this. How much time? Mom's voice was small. I don't know. But I'm not disappearing. I just need space to figure out who I am now. Dad reached across the table. I let him take my hand. We'll give you all the time you need. Just promise us you won't shut us out completely. I promise. Before I left, Mom hugged me tight. I love you, Daniel. No matter what happens with Catherine, no matter how angry you are at us, that will never change. I love you too, Mom. Driving away, I felt lighter somehow. The anger was still there, but it wasn't the only thing anymore. There was sadness too and confusion, but also something that felt like the beginning of understanding. My phone rang. Catherine's number. Hello. Daniel, it's Helen. Ms. Morrison asked me to call. She'd like to know if you'd be willing to come by tomorrow. She has those boxes of your father's things ready. And Helen paused. She's having a good day today. She'd like to tell you more stories about Thomas, if you're interested. I thought about my father, about the man who'd loved music and hiking and teaching, who'd never got to meet me. I thought about Catherine, dying in her glass conservatory, surrounded by wealth that couldn't buy back time. Tell her I'll be there at 2, I said. Thank you, Mr. Donovan. She'll be very pleased. That night I called Rachel. I think I'm going to take the money. Good. You should. And I'm going to use some of it to start the design studio I've always wanted. The one where I can take projects I actually care about instead of whatever pays the bills. Even better. And I'm going to keep seeing Catherine, however much time she has left. Rachel was quiet for a moment. Are you doing this because you forgive her? Or because you don't want to regret not knowing her? Both maybe. Or neither. I don't know yet. I looked at Thomas's letter, now framed on my wall. But I think my father would want me to try. The next 3 months became a strange rhythm of 2 worlds. Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'd visit Catherine at the estate, and she'd tell me stories about Thomas while her strength slowly faded. Sundays, I'd have dinner with Karen and Michael, rebuilding trust one awkward conversation at a time. The boxes of my father's things sat in my apartment like treasure chests. His guitar out of tune and worn, journals filled with research notes and terrible poetry, photos of him and Catherine, young and in love, smiling like they had all the time in the world. I started learning to play his guitar. Badly, just like Catherine said he had. You sound exactly like him, she told me one Thursday, laughing from her wheelchair. The laughter turned into coughing. These episodes were getting more frequent. Helen appeared instantly with water and medication. When Catherine could breathe again, she waved Helen away. I'm fine. Let me enjoy this. But she wasn't fine. I could see her deteriorating week by week. The weight loss, the increased pain medication, the days when she was too weak to get out of bed. Tell me about the day I was born, I said on one of those visits. Catherine's eyes grew distant. It was October 15th. Unseasonably warm. I was alone because my family had disowned me, and Thomas was gone. I'd spent the entire pregnancy talking to you, telling you about your father, promising you'd be loved even if I couldn't be the one to love you. Did you hold me? For 3 days. The longest and shortest 3 days of my life. Her voice cracked. You had the tiniest fingers. You'd wrap them around mine and hold on so tight. The nurse said babies don't actually grip that young, but you did. Like you knew. Like you were trying to tell me not to let go. But you did. I did. And when they took you away, I felt like I was dying. Part of me did die that day, Daniel. The part that knew how to be happy. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just sat with her in the silence. I've made arrangements, Catherine said suddenly. For after. Helen has all the details. But I wanted to tell you myself. Half of Morrison Industries will go to various charities. The other half, I'm leaving to you. I nearly dropped the glass of water I was holding. What? No. Catherine, I can't. You can and you will. Not because you owe me anything, but because it was built on your father's work. His research, his patents, they laid the foundation for everything the company became. You're Thomas's son. It belongs to you. I don't know anything about running a pharmaceutical company. You don't have to run it. That's what the board is for. But you'll have control, voting rights, the ability to steer the company's direction. Use it to do good, Daniel. Make it mean something. Make it what Thomas would have wanted. The weight of it was crushing. I need air. I walked the gardens, my mind racing. CEO of a billion-dollar company. Me, the art school dropout who could barely manage his own freelance business. It was absurd. My phone rang. Marcus. Hey. I heard from Mom that you've been visiting Catherine regularly. How's that going? It's complicated. She's dying, Marcus. Really dying. Maybe a few weeks left. I'm sorry, man. That must be hard. She's leaving me Morrison Industries. Silence on the other end. Then, she's what? Half to charity, half to me. I don't know what to do. Holy shit, Daniel. That's insane. In a good way, I mean. Do you realize what this means? You could change everything. Fund research, develop affordable medications, actually make a difference. I hadn't thought about it that way. I'd been too overwhelmed by the responsibility to consider the opportunity. You should talk to her about the company, I said suddenly. About Thomas's research, about what he was working on. You're good at this business stuff. Help me understand what I'm inheriting. Really? You want my help? Yeah, I do. The next week, Marcus came with me to visit Catherine. I watched my brother, in his expensive suit and confident demeanor, transform into someone gentle and curious as Catherine showed him Thomas's old research notes. Your father was brilliant, Marcus told her. This work on targeted drug delivery, it was years ahead of its time. Catherine smiled. He'd be pleased to know his son appreciates it. Both his sons. Marcus and I exchanged a look. There was something healing in that moment. The three of us connected through a man none of us could meet. On a cold November morning, Helen called. Mr. Donovan, you should come. Soon. I drove faster than I should have, my heart pounding. Rachel met me at the estate, having dropped everything when I called her. Catherine was in bed, oxygen tubes in her nose, but her eyes were clear. Daniel. You came. Of course I came. I need to tell you something. Before I run out of time. She took a labored breath. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to remember me fondly. But I need you to know that meeting you these past few months has been the greatest gift of my life. You are everything I hoped you'd be. Everything Thomas would have been proud of. My eyes burned. Catherine. Let me finish. She reached for my hand with fingers that felt like paper. You are kind and talented and stronger than you know. Don't let anyone, including yourself, tell you otherwise. Live the life your father never got to live. Be happy. That's all I ever wanted for you. I'm glad I met you, I said and realized I meant it. I'm glad I got to know you, even if it was just for a little while. She smiled. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. Catherine Morrison died 3 days later, on a Tuesday morning while I was sitting beside her bed reading Thomas's journal entries aloud. She simply stopped breathing between one moment and the next, peaceful and quiet, her hand still warm in mine. I called Helen, who was waiting in the hallway. Then I called Rachel, who arrived within the hour. We sat in that room for a long time, and I cried for the mother I'd barely known, for the father I'd never meet, and for all the years we could have had but didn't. The funeral was massive. Business executives, politicians, philanthropists, everyone who'd ever wanted a piece of Catherine Morrison came to say goodbye. I stood in the back watching strangers mourn a woman they'd known as a corporate titan, not as someone who'd spent 28 years regretting the worst decision of her life. Karen and Michael came. They stood beside me, and Mom squeezed my hand when the eulogy started. Dad's arm around my shoulders felt solid, real. A reminder that grief didn't erase the people who'd raised me. You doing okay? Dad whispered. I don't know yet, I admitted. The will reading happened a week later. Catherine's lawyers confirmed everything she'd told me. Morrison Industries was mine, along with the estate, her personal fortune, and a letter she'd written in her final days. I waited until I was alone in my apartment to read it. Dear Daniel, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I hope I had the chance to tell you everything I wanted to say, but knowing me, I probably forgot something important. I spent 28 years being a coward. I let fear and grief and my father's manipulation dictate the biggest decision of my life. I gave away the most precious thing I ever had. And I've paid for that mistake every single day since. But here's what I learned too late. Regret doesn't change the past. It only poisons the present. Don't do what I did, Daniel. Don't let fear stop you from living. Don't sacrifice love for success or happiness for approval. Don't wait until you're dying to tell people what they mean to you. You have your father's heart and his curiosity. Use them. Build something beautiful with the life you've been given, the life he never got to live and I threw away. The company is yours now. Do with it what you will. But whatever you choose, make it mean something. Thomas believed science should serve humanity, not profit. Honor that. Honor him. And please, if you can find it in your heart, forgive the people who loved you imperfectly. Your parents, the Donovans, they made mistakes, but they raised a remarkable man. Don't punish them for being human. I did that with my own family, and I died alone because of it. You were the best thing I ever created and the biggest mistake I ever made. I hope someday you can understand that both things are true. Be happy, Daniel. That's all any parent really wants for their child. Love, Catherine. 6 months later, I stood in the lobby of Morrison Industries headquarters, surrounded by photographs of medical breakthroughs and lives saved. My hands were shaking as I adjusted my tie. You ready for this? Marcus asked. He'd agreed to serve as interim CEO while I learned the business, my unexpected brother-in-arms. Absolutely not. Good. The best leaders never are. He grinned. Come on, the board's waiting. The meeting room was intimidating, all glass and leather and serious faces. But I thought about Thomas, who'd worked in a lab somewhere in this building developing therapies that would save lives. I thought about Catherine, who'd built an empire on his foundation. And I thought about the letter in my pocket, the one my father wrote before I was born. You are enough exactly as you are. Gentlemen, ladies. I began, my voice steadier than I felt. I know I'm not what you expected. I'm not a businessman, I'm not a scientist, and I'm definitely not Catherine Morrison. But I'm Thomas Hart's son, and I'm here to make sure his legacy and hers actually means something. I outlined my vision. Lower drug prices, increased research funding, partnerships with nonprofit organizations. Half the board looked skeptical. The other half looked intrigued. This will cost us billions in short-term profits, one executive said. Yes, I agreed. But it will save millions of lives. That's the trade I'm willing to make. The vote was close, but it passed. When the meeting ended, Marcus clapped me on the shoulder. Dad would be proud. Both of them. That evening I had dinner with Karen and Michael. We'd been doing this weekly, slowly rebuilding what 28 years of secrets had damaged. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. How did it go today? Mom asked, passing me the potatoes. I think I didn't completely embarrass myself. That's my boy. Dad smiled. Always setting the bar high. We laughed and it felt good. Normal. Like maybe we were finding our way back to each other. Later, Rachel met me at the apartment I was finally moving out of. Boxes everywhere, my life in transition again. So, billionaire philanthropist now? She teased. Should I start calling you Mr. Donovan? Please don't. I'm still the same guy who couldn't afford rent 6 months ago. No, you're not. She looked at me seriously. You're someone who took the worst thing that ever happened to him and turned it into something beautiful. You're someone who forgave people who didn't deserve it and gave second chances to people who'd given up. You're extraordinary, Daniel. You always were. You just finally believe it. That night, alone in my half-packed apartment, I pulled out Thomas's guitar. I'd been practicing, and I was getting better. Still not good, but better. I played a song I'd been writing, something about loss and forgiveness and finding family in unexpected places. The notes were clumsy, my voice rough, but it was mine. My story told in my own words. On the wall, next to Thomas's framed letter, I'd hung a photo from Catherine's estate. The only picture of the three of us together. Catherine holding newborn me, 3 days old, Thomas's research journal visible on the hospital table beside her. A family that existed for 72 hours before tragedy tore it apart. But I had a family. Multiple families, actually. The Donovans who raised me. Rachel who chose me. Marcus who became a brother twice over. And the ghosts of Thomas and Catherine, whose choices, good and bad, had shaped the man I'd become. I wasn't the person I'd been 6 months ago. That Daniel was invisible, afraid, unsure of his worth. This Daniel knew exactly who he was. Thomas Hart and Catherine Morrison's son. Karen and Michael Donovan's son. An artist, a businessman, a work in progress. Someone who'd been given away but never stopped being loved. Someone who'd learned that family isn't just about blood, or who raises you. It's about who shows up. Who stays. Who sees you. And finally, after 28 years of feeling invisible, I could see myself clearly. That was enough. That was everything.